They stole the wrong Apache woman. By sunrise, a legendary gunslinger was already at the fence. Some mistakes you only make once. The men who took Ayanna from the canyon made theirs when they saw her alone and thought she was unprotected. They saw the beadwork on her clothing, the traditional weapons at her side, and assumed she was just another prize to sell across the territory. What they didn't see was the tracker she'd been traveling with, the one whose name people only whispered after checking over their shoulders, the one called the Reckoning. By the time they realized their error, he was already coming. Ayanna's hands were bound behind her back with rough hemp rope that cut into her wrists. The wooden fence pressed against her shoulder blades as Cyrus Malik circled her like a buyer inspecting livestock. Behind him, the sun climbed toward its peak, turning the desert air thick and still. Two of his men, Wade and Porter, stood near the ranch house, rifles resting carelessly against their shoulders. They'd been drinking since they arrived, celebrating what Cyrus kept calling their best catch in months. She hadn't spoken since they'd thrown her onto the horse. Not when Wade backhanded her for spitting at him. Not when Porter suggested they should sample the merchandise before the sale. Not when Cyrus warned them both that damaged goods brought damaged prices. She just watched them with eyes that held something none of them recognized. It wasn't fear. Cyrus crouched in front of her now, his tobacco-stained teeth showing through a grin. He reached out to touch one of her braids, and she jerked her head away. The movement made him laugh. He liked the ones who still had fight in them, made the breaking more satisfying. "You got a name?" he asked, knowing she wouldn't answer. They never did at first. "Doesn't matter. Where you're going, they'll give you a new one anyway. Something easier for civilized folks to remember." Ayanna's gaze shifted past him, scanning the empty desert beyond the fence. The landscape stretched endlessly in all directions, broken only by scattered brush and the heat shimmer rising from sun-baked earth. No riders, no dust clouds, nothing but silence and distance. Cyrus followed her stare and chuckled. "Ain't nobody coming for you, sweetheart. We made sure of that. Whoever you were riding with is probably miles back, still trying to figure out which way we went." He stood, dusting off his knees. "We'll move you tomorrow morning. Got a buyer waiting near the trading post 3 days west. Till then you just sit tight and keep that pretty mouth shut." He turned toward the ranch house, calling over his shoulder. "Wade, bring her some water. Don't need her dying on us before we get paid." Wade pushed off from the house wall and ambled toward the well, his rifle swinging loose in his grip. Porter stayed where he was, rolling a cigarette and watching Ayanna with eyes that made her skin crawl. She tested the ropes again, feeling for any weakness in the knots. Her fingers found none. Whoever had tied them knew their work. The sun beat down on the fence posts, making the wood almost too hot to touch. Somewhere in the distance, a hawk screamed. The sound cut through the stillness like a warning. Cyrus was almost to the porch steps when he stopped. His head tilted slightly, and his hand drifted toward the revolver at his hip. Porter noticed the change first, straightening and dropping the half-rolled cigarette. Wade froze halfway between the well and the fence. Water bucket forgotten. They all heard it at the same moment. The sound of a single horse walking slow and steady through the desert. Not hurrying, not hiding, just coming. Ayanna's eyes closed briefly, and when they opened again, something had changed in her expression. Not relief exactly. Something colder than that. Something that looked almost like pity. Cyrus's hand tightened around his gun grip as he peered toward the horizon. The hoofbeats grew louder, measured and patient like a clock counting down. "Who the hell is that?" Porter's voice cracked slightly on the last word. The rider appeared through the heat shimmer like a ghost taking solid form. He sat straight in the saddle, his dark hat pulled low. Even from a distance, there was something in the way he moved that made Wade take an unconscious step backward. The stranger rode directly toward the fence line and stopped exactly 20 paces out. Close enough to be seen clearly, far enough to have options. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then the rider dismounted in one fluid motion and stood beside his horse, his hand resting easy near his holster. He didn't draw, didn't need to. His presence alone changed the air pressure in the yard. Cyrus found his voice, though it came out rougher than he intended. "This is private property, friend. You best move along." The man at the fence didn't respond. His eyes, visible now beneath the hat brim, moved from Cyrus to Wade to Porter, cataloging threats with the efficiency of someone who'd done this before, many times before. Then his gaze settled on Ayanna, still bound against the fence, and something flickered across his face too quick to name. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet, almost conversational. but it carried across the yard with perfect clarity. "You have something that belongs to me." That's when Cyrus Malik realized he didn't know this man's name, but somewhere deep in his gut, in that place where instinct lives, he suddenly understood why Ayanna hadn't looked afraid. She'd been waiting. Cyrus's throat went dry. The way the stranger stood there, patient as death itself, made something twist in his gut. He'd seen dangerous men before. Hell, he considered himself one. But this was different. This man wasn't posturing or threatening. He was just stating a fact, the way you'd mention the weather. "Now hold on," Cyrus said, forcing confidence into his voice. His hand stayed near his revolver, but he didn't draw. Not yet. "I don't know who you are, friend, but you got no claim here. This woman was traveling alone. No papers, no escort. That makes her fair game in these parts." The stranger's expression didn't change. "I'm going to walk to that fence. I'm going to cut those ropes. Then we're going to ride out of here." His tone remained conversational. "You can let that happen, or you can try to stop it. Your choice." Porter found his courage, or maybe just his stupidity. 3 against 1, mister. I'd think real careful about those odds." For the first time, something like amusement touched the stranger's face. Not a smile exactly. Something colder than that. 3. He said it like he was testing the word. "I've faced worse." Wade shifted his weight, the water bucket still dangling forgotten from his hand. His eyes darted between Cyrus and the stranger, waiting for a signal. The rifle against his shoulder suddenly felt heavier than it should. Ayanna watched it all without speaking. The ropes had rubbed her wrists raw, but she'd barely noticed. Her focus was entirely on the man at the fence. She knew what was about to happen. Had seen it before, twice, in different territories with different men who'd made different mistakes. The outcome was always the same. Cyrus licked his lips. "Look, maybe we can work something out. You want the woman, fine. But we put time and supplies into this. We deserve compensation for our trouble." "Compensation." The stranger repeated the word slowly, like he was turning it over in his mind. "You tied up an Apache woman, dragged her across the desert, and now you want to be paid for returning her." He took a single step forward, just one, but somehow the distance between them felt like it had halved. "That's not how this works." Something in Cyrus snapped. Maybe it was fear, maybe pride, maybe just the weight of too many years doing things like this without consequence. His hand dropped to his gun. The stranger's hand moved. It wasn't fast the way lightning is fast. It was fast the way time stops when you step off a ledge and realize there's no going back. One moment his hand was at his side. The next, his revolver was clear of the holster and leveled at Cyrus's chest, the hammer already cocked. Nobody had seen the draw. They'd only seen the result. Cyrus froze, his own weapon halfway out. Wade's rifle started to rise, but a glance from the stranger made him reconsider. Porter's hand trembled near his gun belt, but he didn't move either. They all stood locked in that moment, balanced on the edge of violence. "My name," the stranger said quietly, "is Cale Drummond. Some call me the Reckoning. You might have heard stories." He paused, letting that sink in. "They're all true." The color drained from Cyrus's face. He had heard stories. Everyone had. About a tracker who never lost a trail. About a gunslinger who never missed. About a man who'd walked into a gang's hideout alone and walked out 2 hours later while the gang stayed behind. Permanent residents of whatever hell welcomed men like them. "You're him," Wade whispered, the words barely audible. Cale's eyes never left Cyrus. "You took something from me. I've come to take it back. Now, you've got one chance to walk away from this breathing. Drop your weapons, all of you. Do it slow." The wind picked up, throwing dust across the yard. Somewhere in the distance, that hawk screamed again. Ayanna's eyes moved between the 4 men, watching the mathematics of violence calculate itself in real time. Cyrus's hand twitched toward his gun, and that's when everything went wrong. Cyrus's gun cleared leather. Cale's first shot took him in the shoulder, spinning him sideways before he could aim. The sound cracked across the desert like a whip, and suddenly, everything was movement and chaos. Wade brought his rifle up, but Cale had already moved, dropping into a crouch as the shot passed over his head. His second bullet caught Wade in the thigh, dropping him screaming into the dirt. Porter got his gun out, actually managed to fire. The bullet kicked up dust 3 feet from Cale's boot. He never got a chance for a second shot. Cale's third bullet punched through his gun hand, and Porter's revolver hit the ground before he did. Clutching his shattered fingers and howling, The entire exchange took less than 5 seconds. Cale rose from his crouch, smoke still curling from his barrel. His breathing hadn't changed. His hand was steady as stone. He walked forward, closing the distance to the fence where Ayanna sat bound, his gun never wavering from the 3 wounded men. Cyrus writhed in the dust, his shoulder bleeding, but not fatal. The bullet had gone clean through, missing anything vital. Kyle had meant it that way. Wade clutched his leg, whimpering. Porter had gone pale and quiet, probably going into shock from the hand wound. "You shot us," Cyrus gasped, disbelief mixing with pain. "We were going to drop them. We were going to—" "No, you weren't." Kyle reached the fence. With his free hand, he pulled a knife from his belt and cut through Ayanna's ropes in 3 quick strokes. The hemp fell away, and she immediately brought her hands forward, rubbing circulation back into her wrists. "You were going to try. Maybe get lucky. Maybe not. I don't leave things to chance." Ayanna stood, her legs unsteady for just a moment before her balance returned. She looked at Kyle, and something passed between them. Not words, just understanding. She picked up Wade's dropped rifle, checked the chamber, then trained it on the 3 men while Cale holstered his revolver. "You good?" Cale's voice softened slightly when he spoke to her. "Been worse." Her first word since the capture came out rough but steady. She flexed her fingers, working feeling back into them. "Took you long enough. Had to track you through 3 creek crossings. They weren't stupid." He glanced at the wounded men. "Just stupid enough." Cyrus struggled to sit up, his good hand pressed against his bleeding shoulder. "Who is she to you? Your woman? Doesn't matter who she is." Cale's voice went cold again. "What matters is you took her. Now you answer for it." "We need a doctor," Wade moaned from the dirt. "I'm bleeding bad." Cale studied them for a long moment, his face unreadable. Then he looked at Ayanna. "Your call." She walked closer to Cyrus, the rifle steady in her hands. Her eyes held no mercy, but also no cruelty, just a flat, practical assessment. "The trading post is half a day's ride east. You can make it if you leave now and don't stop." "You're letting us go?" Disbelief colored Cyrus's voice. "I'm letting you live long enough to spread the word." Ayanna's jaw tightened. "Tell everyone you meet what happens when you touch Apache women. Tell them about the man who came for me. Tell them his name." Kyle moved to where the horses were tied near the ranch house. He grabbed the reins of 3 of them, the best-looking animals in the group, and led them to where Ayanna stood. "These are compensation for your trouble. The rest of their gear stays here. They ride out with nothing but what they're wearing and their wounds." Porter had gone green. "We'll die out there. Maybe." Kyle's expression didn't change. "Or maybe you'll make it to the trading post and spend the rest of your lives remembering this day. Either way, you're leaving. Now." He pulled Cyrus roughly to his feet. Ignoring the man's groan of pain, Wade managed to stand on his own, his legs still bleeding but slower now. Porter cradled his ruined hand against his chest. Cale pointed east. "Start walking. Your horses are in the corral. Take them and go." The 3 men limped toward the enclosure, supporting each other. Their weapons lay scattered in the dirt where they'd fallen. None of them looked back. Ayanna watched them go, her expression unreadable. When they were 50 paces out, she finally lowered the rifle. "You could have finished it," she said quietly. "Could have." Cale gathered the reins of the 3 captured horses. "But dead men don't tell stories. These 3 will talk. Word will spread. And next time, men like them will remember what happened here. They'll think twice." He looked at her directly now. "You hurt?" "Nothing that won't heal." Something flickered in his eyes. Relief, maybe. Or something deeper than that. "Good. We should move. They might get brave again once they're far enough out." But Ayanna didn't move. Her eyes had fixed on something near the ranch house, and her entire body had gone rigid. "Cale." Her voice was barely a whisper. "There's someone else here." Cale's hand went to his revolver, the movement so smooth it looked practiced 1,000 times. His eyes followed Ayanna's line of sight to the ranch house, scanning the shadowed doorway and the single window beside it. Nothing moved, but in a place this quiet, stillness itself could be a warning. "How many?" His voice was barely a whisper. 1, maybe 2. Inside. Ayanna shifted her weight, readying herself. "I heard them earlier. Thought it was just rats, but the floor creaked wrong. Too heavy." Cale's jaw tightened. He'd cleared the exterior too quickly, focused on the immediate threat of Cyrus and his men. Rookie mistake. The kind that got people buried. Stay behind the fence. Cover the door. No. Ayana's response was flat. If there's another woman in there, she'll be terrified. She needs to see me first, not you. Before he could argue, she was moving toward the house, the rifle held ready but not aimed. Her steps were careful, testing each board of the porch before putting her full weight down. Kyle followed 3 paces behind, his revolver tracking the window. The door stood slightly open, swaying on old hinges. The interior was dark compared to the bright desert sun, making it impossible to see inside. Ayana paused at the threshold listening. Then she spoke, her voice gentle but carrying. We're not here to hurt you. The men who brought you here are gone. You're safe now. Silence answered her. Then, so quiet it was almost lost, a small voice. They said nobody would come. A child. Ayana's expression hardened, but her voice stayed soft. They lied. Can you come to the door? Slowly. We just want to help. Movement in the darkness. A shape emerged gradually, eyes adjusting to the light. A girl, maybe 12 years old, with matted hair and a dress torn at the hem. Her feet were bare, covered in dust and small cuts. She'd been here longer than just today. Days, maybe. Her eyes were hollow in a way that spoke of things no child should witness. She wasn't Apache, wasn't white either. Mixed heritage, probably. The kind that made her valuable to men like Cyrus. Easy to take, hard to trace. Nobody who'd raise enough noise to matter. What's your name? Ayana lowered the rifle completely, setting it against the porch rail. Mila. The girl's voice cracked from disuse. They took me from the settlement, said they'd bring me back if my parents paid, but they never came. Kale holstered his weapon and crouched down, making himself smaller, less threatening. How long have you been here? Mila? I don't know. Long time. They kept moving me. Different places. This was the newest one. She hugged herself, trembling despite the heat. Are you really taking me away? Yes. Ayana stepped through the doorway, closing the distance slowly. But we need to know if anyone else is here. Any other men. Any other girls. Mila shook her head. Just me now. There was another girl, but they sold her last week. Before the Apache woman came. She looked at Ayana with something like hope beginning to crack through the fear. They said Apache women fought back. Said you bit Wade's hand so hard he nearly dropped you. A ghost of a smile touched Ayana's lips. I did. Good. Something fierce flickered in Mila's young eyes. I'm glad. Kyle stood, scanning the interior of the ranch house quickly. One main room, barely furnished. A table, 2 chairs, some blankets in the corner where Mila had probably slept. Evidence of other captive scraps of cloth, a child's worn shoe, marks on the wall where someone had been counting days. His face went cold. This wasn't just a one-time grab. This was an operation. Cyrus and his men had been doing this for a while, and Ayana had just been the latest in a long line of victims. The only difference was, she had someone who came for her. We're burning it. Kale's voice was flat. All of it. This place doesn't get to stand. Ayana nodded. After we leave, Mila needs food and water first. They found supplies in a crate near the back wall. Dried meat, stale bread, a canteen still half full. Mila ate like she hadn't seen food in days, which she probably hadn't. Not real food, just enough to keep her alive and profitable. While she ate, Kale stepped outside and looked east, where Cyrus and his men had disappeared. They were gone now, swallowed by distance and heat shimmer. But this wasn't over. Not really. Because now there was a child who needed protecting, and that changed everything. Kyle. Ayana appeared in the doorway. She says there's a 4th man. He wasn't here when they brought me in, but he's supposed to come back. His hand drifted to his gun again. When? Before nightfall. Ayana's eyes met his. We could run, be miles away before he arrives. Or we could wait. The desert wind picked up again, carrying dust and the promise of more violence to come. Ayana studied Kale's face, reading the decision before he spoke it. She'd seen that expression before, the one that said he'd already done the mathematics of violence and accepted the cost. It was the same look he'd worn when they'd tracked the men who'd raided her village, the same one he'd had when they'd found what was left of her younger sister. We wait, he said finally. Girl said he's the one who handles the money, the real architect of this operation. Cyrus and the others were just hired hands. It's not our fight anymore. But even as Ayana said it, she knew it was a lie. It had been their fight from the moment Mila's hollow eyes had looked up at them, with that fragile, desperate hope. The same hope Ayanna had stopped allowing herself to feel after her sister died. Cale checked his revolver, counting rounds. 3 spent, 3 remaining. It's always been our fight. That's why we do this. The words hung in the air between them. Unspoken history, shared losses. A bond forged in grief and the kind of justice that came too late to save the people you loved, but just in time to prevent it happening to someone else. Mila emerged from the ranch house, gnawing on the dried meat. She'd found a blanket somewhere and wrapped it around her shoulders despite the heat, needing the weight and comfort of it. The man who's coming. His name is Vance. He's worse than the others. Worse how? Cale's attention sharpened. Smarter. Meaner. Cyrus was afraid of him. She sat on the porch step, her bare feet dangling. He hits different than the others, like he knows exactly where it hurts most but won't show a mark. Ayanna crouched beside her. Did he hurt you? He tried. Mila's voice went quiet. I bit him too. Made him bleed. He said next time he'd break my jaw so I couldn't. She looked up at Ayanna with eyes that had aged beyond their years. But there won't be a next time now, right? No. Ayanna's hand rested briefly on the girl's shoulder. There won't. Cale surveyed the ranch yard, already planning. The fence line offered some cover. The well provided a defensive position. The corral could trap or channel movement. He'd fought in worse terrain with worse odds. Mila, when this man arrives, I need you inside the house, behind the table. Don't come out until one of us tells you it's safe. What if neither of you can tell me? The question was too practical for someone so young. She'd already learned that adults didn't always survive to keep their promises. Then you wait until full dark, take the smallest horse from the corral and ride north. There's a mission settlement 3 days out. Tell them Kyle Drummond sent you. They'll take you in. The girl nodded slowly, memorizing the instructions. Survival skills learned through necessity. The sun had started its descent, painting the desert in shades of amber and rust. Shadows lengthened across the yard. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote yipped. Normal sounds. The kind that would mask the approach of a single rider until he was close. Ayanna moved to stand beside Kyle near the fence, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. After this, we should consider stopping. We've considered it before. This time I mean it. But there was no conviction in her voice. They both knew the truth. People like them didn't stop. They just kept moving, following the next trail, answering the next injustice, until the day they were too slow or too tired or just too unlucky. Your sister wouldn't want this for you, Cale said quietly. My sister is dead because men like Vance exist. Ayanna's jaw tightened. So we keep going until there's one less of them in the world. Cale didn't argue. There was nothing to argue with. She was right, and they both knew it. This was what they'd become after loss had carved away everything soft. 2 people who'd chosen to be the thing that hunted the hunters. The sound of hooves broke the evening stillness. Single rider, coming from the west instead of the east, walking his horse carefully through the scrub brush, taking his time, not worried, not expecting trouble, just a man returning to a place he thought was secure. Mila disappeared into the house without being told. Ayanna picked up the rifle, checking the chamber one more time. Cale positioned himself near the corral, where shadows from the fence posts would make him harder to spot until it was too late. The rider appeared over a low rise, his horse picking its way carefully through loose stone. He was older than Cyrus, maybe 50, with gray streaking his beard. Well dressed for the territory, clean clothes, good boots, the kind of man who managed businesses, even if those businesses dealt in human suffering. He rode into the yard and stopped, his eyes taking in the empty space where Cyrus's men should have been. The blood in the dirt, the scattered weapons. His expression didn't change much, but his hand drifted toward the rifle sheathed on his saddle. I'd leave that where it is. Cale's voice came from the shadows, calm and clear. Vance froze. His eyes found Cale, then swept the yard until they found Ayanna. Understanding came slow, then all at once. You're the Apache woman. Not a question. They said you were secured. They were wrong. Ayanna's rifle came up, steady and sure. Get off the horse. Slow. Vance dismounted slowly, his movements careful and deliberate. Unlike Cyrus, he didn't reach for his weapon. Unlike Wade and Porter, he didn't show fear. He simply assessed the situation with the cold practicality of a man who'd survived by reading situations correctly. The others? His voice was level, businesslike. Gone. Kyle emerged fully from the shadows, his revolver trained center mass. Bleeding, scared, carrying a message. About you, I assume. Vance's eyes tracked between Kyle and Ayanna, cataloging details. Let me guess. The legendary Gunslinger. The one they whisper about in trading posts. He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. The Reckoning. You've heard the name. I've heard a lot of names. Most of them attached to dead men who thought reputation was armor. Vance's hand stayed visible, away from his weapon. Smart. But you're still breathing, so maybe there's truth to the stories. Ayanna circled to his left, keeping her rifle sighted. The girl inside. Mila. How many others like her? Something flickered across Vance's face. Not guilt, not shame, just calculation. That's a complicated question. No, it's not. Kale's voice went colder. How many? Vance was quiet for a long moment, weighing his options. Then he sighed. The sound of a man deciding honesty might serve him better than lies. This location? 4 in the last 6 months? Total across 3 territories? Maybe 30. Maybe more. I stopped counting after the first year. The number hung in the air like poison. 30 children. 30 families destroyed. 30 lives stolen and sold like livestock. Ayanna's finger tightened on the trigger, but she didn't fire. Not yet. You're going to die here. Kale's statement was matter of fact. The only question is how much you suffer first. Probably. Vance's acceptance was almost philosophical. But before you pull that trigger, ask yourself what happens to those 30 children when I'm gone. Ask yourself who's paying the people holding them, who's arranging the transfers, who's managing the ledgers. You're saying you're too valuable to lose. Ayanna's voice dripped contempt. I'm saying I'm the only one who knows where they all are. Vance met her eyes steadily. You can put a bullet in me and feel righteous, or you can let me buy my life with information. Your choice. Kale's jaw tightened. It was a play. Had to be. Men like Vance didn't just give up their operations. But what if he was telling the truth? What if killing him meant losing the only thread that could lead to those other children? Talk. The word came out hard. Locations. Names. All of it. Not without assurances. Vance shifted his weight slightly. I walk away from here breathing, and I'll tell you everything. Staging points. Buyers. Routes. The whole network. You think we'd trust your word? No. But you'll trust this. Vance slowly reached into his vest pocket, moving with exaggerated care. He pulled out a small leather journal. Worn at the edges. Every transaction. Every location. Every name. Written in code, but a simple one. Give me safe passage, and I'll give you the key. Ayanna looked at Kale. The question passed between them silently. Could they let him go? Should they? The practical answer warred with the righteous one. 30 children, maybe more. Information that could dismantle an entire network, but at the cost of letting this man walk free. Show us the journal. Kale's gun never wavered. Vance tossed it. The book landed in the dirt between them. Kale picked it up one-handed, flipped through pages of cramped handwriting and columns of numbers. It looked legitimate, detailed, the kind of records a careful businessman kept. The code? Ayanna demanded. After I'm safely away. Vance's smile returned. I'm not stupid enough to give you everything while I'm still in rifle range. From inside the ranch house, Mila's voice cut through the negotiation, small but fierce. He's lying. Everyone's attention snapped to the doorway where she stood, clutching the blanket around her shoulders. Her face was pale but determined. There is no code. The journal is a fake. He showed it to another buyer once when I was hiding in the wagon. It's just random numbers and made-up names. He uses it to look legitimate. Her eyes burned with the kind of anger that comes from betrayal. He's stalling until full dark. That's when the rest of his men arrive. 6 of them. They come every week to collect. Vance's expression went flat. Clever girl. Kyle's revolver barked once. The bullet took Vance through the chest, punching through his heart. He dropped without a sound, the false journal falling from his dead fingers. The echo of the shot rolled across the desert and faded into silence. Mila didn't flinch. She'd seen worse. Thank you. But Kyle wasn't done. 6 men. When? After sunset. Maybe an hour. She looked at the darkening sky. Maybe less. The light was failing fast now, painting the desert in shades of purple and deep blue. In another hour, it would be full dark. Good for hiding, bad for defending. Kale's mind worked through the tactical situation with practiced efficiency. 6 men. Unknown armament. Probably experienced if Vance kept them on payroll. Definitely ruthless if they'd been part of this operation. We leave. Ayana's voice was firm. 3 horses. We ride hard and put distance between us and them. They'll track us. Kyle was already moving, dragging Vance's body toward the ranch house. And we'll be exposed on open ground. Here we have cover, structure, advantages. We also have a child. That stopped him. She was right. Fighting was one thing when it was just the 2 of them. Adding Mila changed the mathematics completely. She couldn't shoot, couldn't fight, would need protecting, which meant dividing their attention when they needed it most focused. Mila spoke up, her voice steady despite everything. I can help. I know how they come in. I've watched them before. Kale studied her. 12 years old. Traumatized. Exhausted. But there was steel in her spine that hadn't been beaten out yet. Tell me. They always send 2 ahead as scouts. The other 4 wait back until they get the signal. Usually a lantern in the window. If they don't see it or if they see trouble, all 6 come in together. Good. Kale's mind was already adapting the plan. Ayana, take Mila and 3 horses. Ride north. Don't stop until you reach that mission settlement. No. Ayana's refusal was immediate. We fight together, or we run together. That's how this works. 6 against 1 are bad odds. So are 6 against 2. At least with 2 we might survive. She moved closer, her voice dropping. You don't get to send me away to keep me safe. That's not what we do. They'd had this argument before. Different circumstances. Same core disagreement. Kale believed in protecting her. Ayana believed in standing beside him. Neither was wrong. Neither would budge. Then we make this place a trap. Kale's decision was made. Mila, you're going in the root cellar. There's always a root cellar in these ranches. Where is it? Behind the house. Hidden under boards. She pointed. But there's snakes down there. Better than bullets. He looked at Ayana. We let the scouts come in. Take them quiet. That leaves 4. We position in crossfire. Use the dark against them. Ayana nodded. The fence line for me. The house corner for you. Mila in the cellar. No matter what she hears. They had maybe 30 minutes. Kyle spent it preparing. He moved Vance's body inside the ranch house, positioned near the window where shadow might make it look like someone standing watch. Gathered all the weapons from the yard, checked his ammunition count again. 3 rounds in his revolver. The rifle he'd taken had maybe 6, not enough for a prolonged fight. Would have to make every shot matter. Ayana found the root cellar and got Mila situated below ground, covering the entrance with boards and brush. The girl didn't cry, didn't protest, just asked one question before descending into the darkness. Will you come back for me? Yes. Ayana's promise was iron. No matter what happens up here, someone will come back for you. The child disappeared below, and they covered her hiding place. Now it was just the 2 of them, and the coming darkness. Kale took his position at the house corner. Ayana moved to the fence line, melting into shadow like she'd been born to it. And they waited. The desert night brought cold. Not the killing cold of winter. Just the sharp drop that came when the sun disappeared. Stars emerged overhead, countless and indifferent. Somewhere in the darkness, a coyote called. Another answered. Natural sounds. The kind that would cover the approach of careful men until they were close. Kale's breathing slowed. Steadied. This was the part he'd done 100 times before. The waiting. The watching. The moment before violence when everything was still possible. When he could still walk away. Let the fight go to someone else. Choose a different path. But he never did. And tonight wouldn't be different. The first sound came from the east. Hooves on stone, moving slow. 2 riders, just like Mila said. They stopped at the edge of the yard, visible as shapes against the slightly lighter sky. One dismounted, began walking forward on foot, his rifle held ready. The scout moved past the corral, past the well, heading straight for the ranch house, looking for the lantern signal, looking for Vance, looking for confirmation that everything was normal and profitable and continuing as planned. He was 10 feet from Kale's position when Ayana's rifle cracked from the fence line. The second scout, still mounted, jerked backward and fell from his horse with a sound like a sack of grain hitting earth. The first scout spun toward the sound, bringing his weapon up. Kale stepped from the shadows and ended him with a single shot to the head. Then the night erupted with gunfire as the other 4 riders charged in, and the real fight began. The 4 riders came in fast and reckless, their judgment clouded by rage at finding their scouts dead. Exactly the mistake Kale had counted on. Men who charged blind made easy targets. Ayana's rifle spoke twice from the fence line. The first rider went down, clutching his chest. The second jerked sideways but stayed mounted, wheeling his horse toward her position. Kale fired from the house corner, dropping him before he could return fire. 2 left. They'd learned now. Split apart. One dove from his saddle and rolled behind the well. The other made it to the corral fence using the posts for cover. Smart positioning. This wouldn't be quick. Kyle counted his remaining rounds. 1 in the revolver, 4 in the rifle, against 2 men behind decent cover in darkness. He caught Ayana's eye across the yard. She nodded once. They'd done this dance before. She fired deliberately at the corral, not trying to hit but forcing the man to stay pinned. Kyle used the distraction to move, sliding along the ranch house wall toward a better angle on the well. The man behind it leaned out, searching for targets. Kale's rifle cracked. The man fell backward and didn't move. The last one broke. Panic overrode training. He burst from the corral, firing wildly as he ran for his horse. 3 shots that hit nothing but air and wood. Ayana tracked him calmly, leading his movement, and squeezed the trigger. He made it 5 more steps before collapsing. Silence returned to the ranch yard, broken only by the nervous stamping of riderless horses and the ringing in their ears from gunfire. Kale moved among the bodies, checking each one. All dead. He felt nothing. Not satisfaction. Not guilt. Just the hollow certainty that this would happen again somewhere else with different men and different victims, unless something fundamental changed. But tonight, it ended here. Ayana uncovered the root cellar. Mila emerged slowly, her face pale but composed. She looked at the bodies without flinching, then at Kale and Ayana with something like gratitude mixed with understanding. She knew what they'd done, why they'd done it, and what it cost to do it. Are there more coming? Her voice was steady. No. Kyle reloaded his revolver from ammunition taken off the dead. This was all of them. They worked quickly, gathered the horses that hadn't run, loaded supplies. Then Kale took a lantern from the ranch house, lit it, and threw it through the doorway. The dry wood caught fast. Flames spread across the interior, consuming the building and everything it represented. Mila watched it burn with fierce satisfaction. Good. They rode north through the darkness, Mila between them on her own horse. The mission settlement was 3 days out, but they'd make it. Behind them, orange light painted the sky as the ranch collapsed into ash and ember. By morning, nothing would remain but scorched earth and scattered bones bleaching in the sun. Ayana rode close to Kyle, their horses matching pace. What happens when we reach the mission? We make sure she's safe. Then we keep moving. To where? Wherever the next trail leads. He glanced back at Mila, who rode with her spine straight despite exhaustion. There's always another trail. Ayana nodded. It wasn't the answer she wanted, but it was the only one they had. They were hunters. Trackers. The ones who came when nobody else would. It wasn't a life that promised peace or happiness, but it was the life they'd chosen after loss had stripped away softer options. The stars wheeled overhead as they rode, 3 figures moving through darkness toward something approaching dawn. Behind them, the fire died to coals. Ahead, somewhere in the vast territory, other children waited in other prisons. Other families grieved. Other men like Cyrus and Vance operated in shadow. But tonight, one girl rode free. One network lay broken. One message had been sent to those who traded in human suffering. Some women you don't touch, some men you don't provoke, and some mistakes you only make once. If you enjoyed this story, click the video on your screen now to watch another tale from the frontier, where justice meets consequence and legends are earned in blood and dust. Don't forget to subscribe and consider a super chat to help us keep bringing you stories like these. Your support means everything.